Hello and welcome back. I'm Andy Singleton. This is the Baseball Show. I'm here, as always, with Ralph Lifshitz. We are getting you primed, prepped, prepared for the 2017 fantasy baseball season. Hope you have been enjoying our breakdown and analysis on the players we've covered so far. We're getting into prospects today, which is something Ralph and I both love to do. We covered 3 hitters last week. We're going to cover 3 arms this week. As always, keep in mind, our release schedule is Tuesdays to give you 3 major league pitchers, Wednesdays to give you 3 major league hitters, and Thursdays to give you 3 prospects, and that will be a mixed bag of hitters and pitchers. And we're going to be doing this all the way through spring training, covering 9 guys in total a week. If you got any specific players you want to know about, don't hesitate to leave them in the comments or ask to us on Twitter. However you need to find us, we'll be happy to dive into a player of your request. With that being said, we're going to talk about 3 arms today, 2 of which I know are Ralph's absolute favorites. One is my personal favorite. We're going to start with Anderson Espinoza, who was in the Red Sox system, got traded to the Padres, of course, in the Drew Pomeranz deal during 2016. Major League Baseball has him as the 13th overall prospect, the Padres' number 1 guy, and the 4th pitcher in the minors right now. The guys ahead of him, Giolito, Alex Reyes, and Tyler Glasnow, all figure to graduate this year. So conceivably, Anderson Espinoza right now is the number 1 pitching prospect in the minor leagues. He'll only be 19 in March, and he's likely at least 2 years away, probably a little bit longer. So you're going to have to wait a little bit, but it's not that long in dynasty circles. If you're a dynasty league owner, you're used to waiting on guys at least 2 years, so it's not really that big of a deal. But provided he stays with the Padres, he gets a great home park to pitch in. My big question to you, Ralph, is should people be going all in to trade for him now before he becomes untouchable? Or do you have any reason for pause with him? Because this is the opportune buying window for a guy who, like I said, for all intents and purposes, number 1 pitching prospect right now, because the other 3 you're not going to be able to get.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, personally, he's not my number 1 pitching prospect. There's probably like 4 or 5 guys ahead of him in the minors. We'll talk about a couple of them today. One being Martes, who we'll get into in a minute. But I like Espinoza. I was very sad the day that I was coming back from a company outing, my company's summer outing, and the first thing I do, I turn on the radio and I find out the Red Sox made a trade. I'm like, oh, great. What do they get? Well, they got Drew Pomeranz and they traded Anderson Espinoza, and just panic went over my face. I'm still sad about that trade. It's one of those classic Dave Dombrowski kind of moves where they shouldn't have made a move when they did. It's all sort of besides the point. It's me crying as a Red Sox fan. I'm sad to see him go. I wish they had held on to this guy. There was no reason to move him, especially when they had an opportunity to then reverse it when they found out that there were some structural issues with Pomeranz's elbow, but they didn't, Dombrowski being the salty old dog that he is, he stayed with his boy. But as for Espinoza, I think it's probably a good time to probably trade for him in dynasty leagues. His value could jump significantly, especially if he has a good year. That being said, if he has a bad year, if he's a bad first half, all of a sudden his value is going to tank. That's the risk with pitching prospects, especially with lower minors pitching prospects. In terms of the stuff, it's unbelievable. There's probably no other pitcher in the minors that can necessarily match his curveball, fastball mix. Just the overall stuff. It's nasty. It sort of jumps out of his hand. I know the numbers weren't great when he was with the Red Sox last season. One of the reasons they said for that is they were trying to get him not to blow the fastball by these low minors hitters. They were trying to get him to work on his off-speed stuff, throw some of that. I don't know if that's true. The Red Sox don't exactly have a long storied history in terms of developing pitchers, particularly over the last 10 years or so. So I have some questions about that. In terms of the raw, package, the upside's probably higher than anybody. I mean, he probably has the highest upside of any pitcher in the minors. He's still very risky, though. And I think I want to throw that out there. I mean, go there, go onto YouTube, watch the scouting videos, all that sort of stuff. He's got the great fastball. Like I said, he spins a great curveball as well. He needs to develop some of his other secondary pitches to go along with those 2+ pitches. And then I think he sort of gets to his at least his floor. There's still some question, though. He's still got some bullpen risk. I think it's similar to any sort of low minors international pitching prospect in particular. Because they're not coming from a particular program. They weren't in all these camps. It's just a little bit different. I mean, it was a great find by the Red Sox. He's obviously blossomed into a top pitching prospect. The stuff is really good. But there's some questions as to, what Espinoza is. And if you jump in with Espinoza, you do trade for him, understand there is going to be some risk and there is going to be some heartache. There's going to be some peaks and valleys with a guy like that.
Yeah, let me just reemphasize and clarify. I was saying he's MLB.com's fourth overall.
Yeah, I understand.
No, just to clarify for our audience, not just you. I know you understand. He could be, that position could vary depending on what list you choose, and it could be the same. So my point is, the three guys ahead of him are likely to move on to the majors this year, which will leave him moving up to the top spot. So before he actually hits that top spot, you might get some people that are still willing to deal him, especially given on the time it's going to take him to mature into the majors. With all that being said, and my biggest question was if you had any pause for concern, because even if he gets off to a slow start this season, as you mentioned, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. He's still young enough and he's going to be well underage for whatever level he's at. I'm assuming he's going to be in AA this season. If he does get off to a slow start, it doesn't mean he's done or he's been exposed. It just means he's got to figure it out. And if he's got the pedigree that we think he does, then he will figure it out. So, maybe that buying window becomes a little bit, opens up a little bit wider if he gets off to a bad start. But I think the point is, now's the time. If you're interested in Espinoza, now's the time to start figuring out a way to try to get him on your roster. Don't overpay for him yet, because there are still some question marks and everything like that. But ace stud pitchers of this caliber, of this mold, don't come along that often. And if you have an opportunity to get a guy like this right now, you might have to strike. Is the picture I'm trying to paint for you out there. I don't know if Ralph would dispute that or not. You got any other final things on Espinoza?
No, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head right there. He's a high upside, low minors arm, and he's probably the highest low upside minors arm. I mean, you heard all the Pedro Martinez comps when he was in the system from Pedro himself as well. So, that builds up your value quite a bit. He was a Red Sox guy, so he's well known for a low minors pitching prospect, and he's got all the ability in the world. So we'll see if he learns how to pitch.
Yeah, I don't think it was the case of an organization overhyping their guy as a potential trade chip. I think he's legit, as legit as they come, at least at this point. Obviously there's a lot of things that have to happen right, but so far they all are. So, with that being said, he's not a Red Sox. He's never been in the Red Sox organization, but he is the Benintendi of arms in Ralph Lifshitz's mind. I am speaking of Houston Astro 21-year-old Francis Martes. Maybe I know you have his whole background, so maybe you'll adjust the pronunciation of his last name. He is Major League Baseball's 29th overall prospect. Number one, let me clarify again. MajorLeagueBaseball.com's 29th overall prospect. Number one for Houston. Number 5 overall pitcher. He just turned 21, as I mentioned, in November. Another power arm who spent all of 2016 and all 22 of his starts in AA. Go ahead. Tell me.
Sure.
I know you want to take this all away.
So the thing with Martes, the first thing I want to mention is let's throw a little dirt on the Marlins organization. They included this guy as a throw-in, as a third player, as a throw-in in a trade for Jared Kozart. Okay, so they lost him for Jared Kozart. They had no idea what they had. What he's turned out to be is one of the most high-octane pitching prospects in all of baseball. He had a great season this year at AA, and it's even funnier because in the first month, he's one of these guys, a small righty, and my calling card is I'm the guy that's not scared of small righties, and he's like the definitive small righty for me. I love him. I think he's nasty. Another guy with a big fastball. another guy with a big curveball. He's kind of like what you hope Espinoza will be in, a year or two's time. What people forgot was he was the youngest pitcher in Double-A last season when he started the season. He was 20 years old the entire year. He started the year off very shaky. If you remove his starts in April and you just look from May 1st on until the end of the season, his numbers were 2.74 ERA, 117 WHIP. His K/9 was 9.5, and that was all supported by a 2.42 WHIP. And by the way, only had 3 homers in 118 innings, and that's one of the youngest pitchers in that level. Went to Arizona. They got rave reviews when he was in Arizona. His fastball works in the high 90s. Most of can touch triple digits, but most of the time it's somewhere between 96 to 98. He's got a 70 grade curveball. The change is still developing. He'll mix in a cutter a little bit as well. He's got good control. The command needs to work a little bit. What I mean by that, they are two different things. He throws strikes consistently, but sometimes the ball will rise on him a little bit in the zone. Overall, I'm a big Francis Martes fan. I think he's probably a year away from the majors. It wouldn't shock me if he made some starts potentially later on in 2017, but he's probably a 2018 ETA guy. And he's certainly the jewel of the Houston system, which is one of the deepest systems in all the minors.
You see the words he uses to describe players he likes? The jewel of the We have to set up a meet and greet with you and Francis Martes. Did you even figure out how to say it right? How many letters have you
I see several. If you consider my post over on Razzball to be love letters, he's gotten several. And then there's podcasts and everything else. I go on rants about Martes on a regular basis. I said Martes. That's what I've always heard. That's what I go with.
Maybe we can get him on to tell us how he prefers it being said at some point throughout the season as we kick into our weekly, talk show format. But I think I know the answer, but I still have to ask. Between he and Espinoza, you only got enough ammo to go after one of these guys in a trade. Do you have a preference? Are you happy with either? Or is it clearly one above the other?
I'm going to get killed. It's Martes. I mean, he's in Double-A. He's a shot away at this point. If Espinoza has a very good year this year, and we're having this conversation a year from now, Martes maybe had a couple of starts in Houston that weren't great or whatever, pitches okay in AAA, but Espinoza's in Double-A next year, and he looks like he's going to be in San Diego in a year's time. That might change. At this point, he had a very good year in Double-A. He looks like a potential ace. Houston has needs in the rotation. I just think he's a great fit right now.
Well, and that's all fair, but that addresses, current more than it does long-term projection. So, side by side, over the next 5 years, who do you think we're talking about 5 years from now between these two guys? Are we talking about both? Are we talking about either? Are we talking about one or the other?
Yeah, I'm going to say both. Okay. I'm going to sit in the fence on this one and say both. And I just think it's because I am so cautious with low minors arms. I mean, I think the upside for Espinoza is definitely a tick higher than it is with Martes. I think the floor is just higher with Martes because of where he is. But I think they're both guys that could potentially be, ace right-handed starters that, we're talking about for the next 5 years or, for many years to come. They're both top 10 pitching prospects in baseball, and they're that for a reason. And I think they're similar in the sense that they both have sort of 70, 80 grade fastballs and 70 grade curveballs as well. So the stuff is similar too.
Okay. Fair enough. All right, let's move on to our third guy today. He happens to be one of my personal favorites. I actually wrote about this guy almost 2 years ago to the day, back in January of 2015, well before he broke out, and I told everybody, make sure you start looking into this guy, adding this guy. He's going to break out. He made me look really good. He made himself look really good too, but he made me look really good with that projection, so I'll always be forever indebted to Jose De Leon for that. He is MLB.com's 33rd overall prospect. He's the number 2 guy in the Dodgers system, according to them, and the number 8 pitcher overall. He's a little older for a prospect because he did go the college route, and He's somewhat of a late bloomer. He'll be 25 in August, but he's moved quickly through the system, definitely quickly through the minors. As Ralph has mentioned in previous episodes, the Dodgers usually do a good job with their prospects. He's had some DL stints, some minor setbacks, nothing majorly, concerning, nothing really arm related. He's an extreme strikeout pitcher. He gets knocked as being somebody that might give up too many home runs, especially now that he's moved away from his two-seam fastball and concentrated mostly exclusively on his four-seamer. But if you look at his numbers, I mean, this guy has better numbers than both of the two pitchers we've already talked about. His career K per nine is well over 11. His walks are, I believe, in the 2 range, 2 per 9. I mean, the guy's numbers are insane across the board, and that is all the way through AAA. The only stumble he really took was upon his promotion to the majors, where it really didn't go that well at all. And I'll be the first to admit, I'm sure he will as well. But that is not who he is to me. We like to talk about, we mentioned this with Austin Hedges. I think it was Austin. No, I said this with Austin Hedges. You said this with another player. I forgot now. But there are quad A players, and there are, guys that just need to figure it out. I think he's a guy that needs to figure it out, and I definitely think he will. I'm fully versed in him. I'd love to talk to anybody all day about Jose De Leon, but I want to hear some of Ralph's thoughts on him because he's not somebody I really hear you talk too much about, and I think he's a underrated stud, is what I think he is.
Yeah. And I just did my Dodgers write up, back in December, and I had him ranked as the number 2 prospect in the Dodgers system. Or maybe it was number 3 because I really like Willie Calhoun, but I'm just a hitter over a pitcher guy. But I think you hit the nail on the head with De Leon. He was a late bloomer. He was a 24th round pick by the Dodgers out of Southern. You probably haven't even heard of that school, but if you have, good for you. And he was an out of shape guy. He had to sort of work on his physique. He's done that. He slimmed down. He was chubby. Now he's sort of a strong, bigger guy. I mean, he's not totally ripped. He's not super tall or anything like that, but he's molded his physique into that of a starting pitcher in the major leagues. He led all the minors in K per 9 back in 2015. Started the season off last year hurt, but when he showed up in AAA in the PCL, which is a great hitting environment. I mean, probably in terms of leagues, the Cal League and the PCL are probably your 2 best hitting, leagues in all the minors. They're just littered with hit parks, and De Leon dominated. I mean, he was nasty. And if it hadn't been for, 25-man, 40-man roster concerns with De Leon and all the amount of players that they had to have in the DL, hopefully, I was hoping he would have been up in LA a lot sooner than he was. It seemed like they almost waited too long, and he was probably pretty tired by that point in the season. So I'm going to throw out everything he did in the majors. I do think he's a legit major league starter. You got to love the fastball. He misses a ton of bats. Another thing I think is underrated about him is he scouts a lot of these other prospect riders. They love curveballs. They love sliders. Those are great changeup. And that matters in the majors. And that matters in terms of missing bats and keeping players off balance. He also spins a slider as well. That's, average, a little bit more fringy. But the changeup is plus. And obviously the fastball is plus. And he works off of those 2 pitches, and he's able to miss bats. He does throw the slider, to his glove side off the plate, and he is effective with that as well. So he has some out pitches, but I think that makes a big difference in terms of how many bats he misses. And that's the thing I want to focus on with De Leon, because the strikeout numbers are awesome. And that's what I chase when it comes to pitchers in fantasy leagues. I want guys that miss bats. I want guys that get me strikeouts, because everything sort of falls in line after that. If you want true fantasy ace players, there's a difference between a Max Scherzer and a Cueto, even if their ERAs are similar, whips are similar, wins are similar. Max is going to have all those strikeouts, and that's a big differentiator for you. And I think that's what De Leon offers. The problem is, where does he fit into the Dodgers' plans this season? He's one of those guys that I almost hope the Dodgers make a trade, and he ends up getting moved someplace that's a relatively good pitching environment and all those sort of things, because he needs to get a shot. He's 24. Like you said, he's going to be 25 next season. He hasn't been, waiting in the minors all that long. He's been sort of developing himself. He puts in the work. I don't see any reason that he can't reach your really high upside. It's maybe like a number 2 starter on your fantasy team, probably in real life as well. Don't think he's an ace, but damn it, I wish the Dodgers would get rid of Kazmir and McCarthy and some of these guys and get De Leon into that rotation behind Urias, and let's see what happens for the next 5 years,
Yeah, the Dodgers have a ton of options of moves they could make. I don't know that De Leon is one that they want to give up on. I was mentioning that, his big knock right now will be his home run rate, or the home runs he's given up. And that is because when he came into the majors, it was pretty bad. It was, his average was 3.5 per 9 he was giving up. But at no point in his career had it been above one homer per 9. So it's never been an issue for him. I think people are going to be overreacting if that's a number they're going to look at for him as a pro. This, to me, is a tremendous buy low opportunity and window for a guy that really does have true potential to be a number 2 guy in fantasy and in real life. And somebody that owns him now in a dynasty league particular might be scared and think, well, maybe this isn't a major league pitcher. Maybe he just had inflated minors numbers. Let me try to, max out on him and get something while I can before, he's a waiver wire dump or something like that. I'd be looking to target De Leon in any league I play in, just because the upside is still there, the value is still there, and you might be able to get away with a lukewarm offer, which would put him, undervalued in that scenario based on somebody being scared. And in redraft leagues, he's somebody that should be on your radar for this year as well, towards the end of your drafts, as a flyer guy, as a late arm to add, because the upside is there as soon as this year. He's young, but he's not young. He's physically mature, and he's in his wheelhouse right now, in his prime, entering his prime for a pitcher. So if he's going to get the start in the majors, he's going to be productive. And as Ralph was saying, as I've been saying, he's an extreme strikeout pitcher, and those are always a valuable thing in fantasy. So I think that's going to wrap it up for this episode, this installment. Volume 2 is now in the books. We've given you 3 pitchers this week, 3 hitters this week, and now 3 prospects. Hope you're enjoying this. This is the Baseball Show. We look forward to seeing you next week. If you got any specific players to ask us about, submit them, and we'll surely get to them. Take it easy. Find us on Twitter. Subscribe to the channel. See you next week.